Hey, folks, welcome to the Camp Constitution Report with your host, Hal Shurtleff. This report can be seen on our YouTube channel, our Rumble channel, and our Podomatic page, and about I don't know, half a dozen other podcast outlets, Spotify, Amazon, and a few others. Brought to you by Camp Constitution, which, among other things, runs a week-long family camp, and that camp is coming up in a few months. July 13th to the 18th at the beautiful Singing Hills Christian Camp in Plainfield, New Hampshire. We get a ladies' retreat coming up this weekend. Probably by the time you watch this, it might be over. And we got a lot of all things going on. We'll be at some homeschool expos in May, a couple in New Hampshire. You can visit our calendar to see what we're doing. And we don't put everything on the calendar, especially if it's a private, if it's an organization that's like only invitation only type things. But most of our events all the events that we host are definitely open to the public. Anyway, website's campconstitution.net. Now you see here on this screen 10 Reasons Why Christian Parents Should Take Their Children Out of Public Schools by Samuel L. Blumenfeld. Now, as many of you folks have been following us know that back in 2015, our late dear friend and mentor, Sam Blumenfeld, passed away. It was actually the day after his birthday. He died June 1st. He was 89 years of age. And Sam was a pioneer in the modern homeschool movement. He authored about 13, 14 books, hundreds of articles, hundreds of speeches he gave. And he actually willed most of his materials to me personally. And prior to his death, he encouraged me and a few others to clean out his storage unit. In fact, he actually gave me the balance, so the rest of the month to pay. And we got over 200 boxes of plus, in his apartment, we had bags. And we had to go through it, of course. And what we came up with was some real gems. And thanks to a couple of very talented people, Mark Affleck, who's our camp newspaper editor, and our webmaster, Eric. Anyway, they Mark did most of the digitizing, and Eric put it all together. And we created the Blumenfeld Archive. And this archive is available to anybody. All you need is a username and a email address. And you can access that by just going to our website, as you can see here, and then click on the Blumenfeld Archive. Now, this is our camp blog, and I've been doing this, I'm not sure, maybe since 2017, the Weekly Sam. And I might miss a week here and there, and I missed last week. But what I do is I take something from the archive and put it in the camp blog, and sometimes I might email it. It could, this article I've actually used more than one time, but it's very timeless. The archive contains some PDF versions, excuse me, of Sam's books, including his Alpha Phonics. Not only do we have the Alpha Phonics in a PDF, but we also have it available as a online course, all 128 lessons available in both audio and video. And by the way, some of these lessons are 5 minutes long. As you get further into it, the lessons are a little bit longer. But we use his Alpha Phonics, just the book itself, to teach our children and other adults, and they're very highly literate. But Sam, when I first met Sam in 1989, he told me in no uncertain terms, never let your child set foot in a government school. And I'm not sure when he wrote this. It may have been written in probably the late 1990s, early 2000s. Sometimes you could tell. But I'm going to read some of it here. 10 reasons why Christian parents should take their children out of public schools. There might be more than 10, but Sam narrowed it down. So I'm just going to read some of it. There's been much debate of late among Christians whether or not their children should be taken out of public schools and put into private Christian schools or homeschooled. I firmly believe that they should be taken out, and I've outlined 10 good reasons why this should be done, and done as soon as possible. The first reason is pretty obvious. The Bible commands parents to bring up their children in the love and admonition of the Lord. We read in Deuteronomy 6:6, and these words which I command thee this day shall be in the heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shall talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down. Sam liked the King James Version. And when thou risest up. How can a Christian parent obey that commandment and put a child in a school that is so militantly anti-Christian and anti-God? The public school represents the antithesis of a godly education. They should not be patronized by Christians. Hear that? Reason two, the public schools are not only anti-Christian, but represent a government establishment of religion called humanism. Your child is at risk of being de-Christianized by the religion of public education. Here's what humanist John J. Dunphy, wrote in the Humanist magazine of January 1983. I am convinced that the battle for humankind's future must be waged and won in the public school classroom by teachers who correctly perceive their role as proselytizers of a new faith, a religion of humanity that recognizes and respects the spark of what theologians call divinity in every human being. These teachers must embody the same selfless dedication as the most rabid fundamentalist preachers, for they will be ministers of another sort, utilizing a classroom instead of a pulpit to convey humanist values in whatever subject they teach, regardless of education level, preschool, daycare, or large state university. The classroom must become an arena of conflict between the old and the new, the rotting corpse of Christianity, together with its adjacent evils and misery, and the new faith of humanism, resplendent in its promise of a world in which the never realized Christian ideal of love thy neighbor will finally be achieved. We already know that millions of Christian children have lost their faith because they fell prey to humanist proselytizers who preach that God does not exist and that human beings can be as gods. Do you have any guarantee that your child will be immune from these lies? Reason three, the educators have redefined the purpose of education. Its purpose is no longer to impart academic skills that your child can develop independent intelligence and make a life for himself. The new purpose of education was defined by, I got a little typo there, by Professor Benjamin Bloom in his book Taxonomy of Education Objectives, published in 1956, in which he wrote, by educational objectives, we mean explicit formulations of the ways in which students are expected to be changed by the educative process. That is, the way in which they will change their thinking, their feelings, and their actions. The evidence points are convincingly to the fact that age is a factor operating against attempts to effect a complete or thoroughgoing reorganization of attitudes and values. The evidence collected thus far suggests that a single hour of classroom activity under certain conditions may bring about a major reorganization in cognitive as well as affective behaviors. As Christian parents, close quote, as Christian parents, you will never know and you will never be told when that single hour of classroom activity will be sprung on your child. The child who returns home from school that day may not be the same child you sent to school that morning. You've played Russian roulette with your child's spiritual life and you've lost. In addition, this change of values between children and parents inevitably leads to intense conflict within the family. When children adopt humanist values, they become haters of their family's biblical values. That's what destroys so many Christian families. Reason four, public schools now teach sex education almost as a form of pornography. Now, this was written a while ago, plus probably 25 years ago, so it's a whole lot worse than it was back then. Encouraging children to engage in premarital recreational sex. The result is that many Christian girls have lost their virginity, developed sexually transmitted diseases, become pregnant, had an abortion, and lost their self-esteem. The boys, under peer pressure, are forced into sexual intimacy long before they are ready to be fathers. The children are considered animals with no control over their sexual urges. Reason five, drug education arouses interest in drugs, especially when the children are told that they must make their own decisions about drugs. This gives children a choice, which any Christian parent would consider the wrong thing to do. There's no decision making when it comes to drugs. A Christian child need not know all about drugs. All you need to know is that drugs are unequivocally forbidden. But that's not the message conveyed in public schools. The result, many Christian children get into drugs and become hooked. Reason six, as you know, we are presently involved in a life and death cultural war between Christianity and secular humanism. When you patronize the enemy's institutions, you are giving tacit approval of what that institution stands for. In addition, if you have any understanding of the forces that oppose us, you know that they have billions of dollars with which to fight us. So why give them your children? If you want to win this war, the easiest, least bloodiest way to win it is by withdrawing your children from their institutions. They cannot succeed without your children. It's as simple as that. So by giving them your children, you are helping them tie the noose around the neck of Christianity. Reason 7, it is unreasonable to expect Christian children to be missionaries in the public schools where they have not had any professional training, are unable to answer the arguments of their enemies, gain the contempt of their teachers, and become demoralized in the process. You can't expect children to do the job which even adults find difficult. Reason 8, Satanists in the public schools have targeted Christian children for persecution and even murder. That's what took place at Columbine High School in Littleton, Colorado, and also in a school in Paducah, Kentucky. In other words, Christian children are at risk in public schools where Bible reading and prayer are outlawed. But Satanism isn't. Satanists have free reign in the public schools, and your child may be a victim of their evil force. Reason 9, children in the public schools are considered to be animals because the behavioral psychology that now governs public education is based on a theory of evolution, which claims that human beings and monkeys have a common ancestor. Humanist behaviorists use animal training techniques to teach your precious child who was made in the image of God, but the schools teach your child that he or she is simply a higher form of monkey. When children accept the notion that they are animals, they are apt to act like animals without conscience, without a sense of moral absolutes. Reason 10, because of widespread educational malpractice in the schools, your child is in danger of becoming learning disabled, dyslexic, or afflicted with attention deficit disorder. Your child is in danger of becoming functionally illiterate. At least 30% of the children in public schools emerge at the end of the process unable to read properly, spell correctly, or do basic arithmetic. Do you have a guarantee that your child will not be a victim of this educational malpractice? I'm sure that I could come up with many more reasons, but these 10 I hope will give Christian parents enough food for thought so they will make the right choice in favor of God's commandment. The public schools cannot be saved by Christians, nor should Christians want to save them, since they have been rendered morally dangerous by Supreme Court decisions and the likes of the National Education Association. By withdrawing your children from public schools, you will be making your own declaration of independence from the satanic institutions that the public schools have become. You'll be exercising the precious freedom you still have to take control of your children's education. And by doing so, you'll be preserving the heritage of freedom to pass on to your children and your children's children. And again, there's a link. If you go to our website, you can just need the link in the article. But we encourage you folks to share this. You can copy and paste it. You can get the word out. It's very important. Now, again, this was written 25, maybe 25, even longer than that, years ago. And Sam has been correct. This is a timeless article. I did a little uh, program on this one too. I'm no fan of Malcolm X, but he said that never let your enemies never only a fool will let his enemies educate his children. Well, I think that demonstrates what's going on. Yeah, the homeschool movement is flourishing. What was once considered a fringe is now becoming mainstream, thankfully. And and so we do encourage you to not only, if your children are in government schools, to get them out. And there's so many homeschool resources. No matter where you are, there's a homeschool group in your state. Other countries even have them. And there's probably a homeschool co-op right in your own town, and you don't even know it. Anyway, thank you for watching. You've been watching the Camp Constitution Report with your host, Hal Shurtleff. And until next time, may God richly bless you.